Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Begum with you on this Wednesday, February the 25th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, the German Chancellor's in Beijing for an official visit to China and is accompanied by a high-level business delegation. The U.S. President's delivered a State of the Union address and has lashed out at the Supreme Court over a recent tariff decision. China is marking the 5th anniversary of the elimination of extreme poverty in the country. In business, direct investment in China by German companies has hit a new milestone. In sports, updated table tennis action at the WTT Singapore Smash. In culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese movie has made its debut in Los Angeles. Now checking the day's top stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called on China and Germany to strengthen strategic communication and trust to further develop bilateral relations. He made the remarks while meeting German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Beijing. President Xi said the China-Germany relationship is important for both countries, Europe, and the world. Merz said Germany values its ties with China. He also reaffirmed support for the One China principle. The German leader is leading a high-level trade delegation, including senior executives from nearly 30 leading German companies in sectors such as automotive, chemicals, and manufacturing. Dai Kai takes a closer look at how Germany is recalibrating its diplomatic approach and what it means for China-Germany ties.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz arrived in Beijing on Wednesday, officially beginning his first visit to China since taking office. His arrival comes at a time of shifting global alignments and rising uncertainty within the transatlantic alliance.
We see it in debates at the World Economic Forum in Davos and in security discussions at the Munich Security Conference. Germany, in particular, is reassessing how it positions itself in an increasingly fragmented global order. In Munich, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz was blunt, saying the international order based on rights and rules is currently being destroyed.
This order, as flawed as it has been even in its heyday, no longer exists.
That tone reflects widening strains in the West. For Berlin, it also signals a shift toward greater strategic autonomy and pragmatic partnerships. Despite years of trade frictions, relations between China and the European Union are beginning to steady. By early 2026, China and the EU reached a negotiated settlement in their electric vehicle trade dispute, replacing high anti-subsidy tariffs with a minimum import price system. China's visa-free policy for German passport holders introduced in 2025 is expected to further strengthen people-to-people exchanges. As German Chancellor Friedrich Merz starts his visit to China on Wednesday, German firms are voting with their feet. The BMW chief executive Oliver Zipse, for example, is one of 30 business representatives to accompany Merz on the trip. He told Reuters recently that complex global challenges can only be solved by working together, he said, describing the Chancellor's trip to China as a strong signal for dialogue and cooperation. He emphasized that those who close their minds to China's enormous market and innovation potential are missing out on great opportunities for global growth and economic success.
This visit sends a strong signal for dialogue, collaboration, and mutual trust, because these are crucial ingredients not only for the future of Sino-German partnership, but also for tackling today's complex global challenges together. We are convinced if you want to thrive globally, you cannot miss out on China's innovation potential.
Germany's Federal Statistical Office released figures showing that China was back on top as Germany's most important trading partner in 2025. It also says that while trade in goods with China grew by 2.1%, trade with the United States declined by 5%. That said, transatlantic tensions do not automatically translate into a swift convergence between Europe and China. Many in Europe still view China through a dual lens, as both partner and competitor. There is interest in tapping China's market, but also caution about strategic rivalry and competitive pressure. When they aim for pragmatic engagement, how that pragmatism is defined and implemented remains to be seen. Whether Europe will craft a China policy grounded more squarely in its own interests is still an open question. The Atlantic Alliance is one reality to Germany, but in such a fragmented world, Berlin appears to be seeking alternative options, finding partnerships it can truly count on.
That was Dai Kai on the German Chancellor's China tour. And for more, Jiang Tao spoke with Wang Le, Associate Professor at the School of Politics and International Relations at East China Normal University.
The Chancellor is with about 30 top executives from leading German companies. German media even called it the most carefully planned visit ever. What do you think this means for the future of China-Germany cooperation?
It tells us that despite global geopolitical tensions and discussions about de-risking from China, the economic interdependence between the two countries remains critically important. Germany's economic model remains export-oriented, and China continues to be one of its largest trading partners. By bringing CEOs from sectors such as automotive, chemicals, advanced manufacturing, and finance, this indicates a pragmatic approach. While Germany seeks to diversify supply chains and reduce strategic vulnerabilities, it does not aim for decoupling. At the same time, the scale and planning of the visit suggests a desire to stabilize expectations for business communities on both sides. This could be framed as a dual-track strategy, managing political differences while deepening with a commercial and industrial cooperation, especially in areas aligned with green transition and industrial upgrading. In short, the delegation signaling continuity into institutionalized dialogue and also a long-term commitment to engagement with China.
You mentioned that Merz is seeking close economic engagement. Besides Beijing, the Chancellor is also visiting Hangzhou and will stop by Unitree Robotics. What's the significance of this part of the trip, and what does it say about the prospects for high-tech collaboration between the two countries?
Also, the Chancellor's visit to Hangzhou carries strong symbolic and strategic meaning for high-tech cooperation. Hangzhou is widely regarded as one of China's most dynamic digital economic hub and also known for innovation in AI, robotics, e-commerce platforms, and also smart manufacturing. By traveling there, rather than limiting the itinerary to political meetings in Beijing, the Chancellor signals that Germany sees future bilateral cooperation increasingly rooted in advanced technology and innovation ecosystem. We say this visit is forward-looking in three key perspectives. First, it highlights robotics and AI as a potential new pillar of China-Germany cooperation beyond traditional sectors like automobiles and machinery. Second, it reflects shared interests in industrial upgrading, productivity enhancement, and addressing those pressures through automation. And also, thirdly, it suggests a pragmatic approach, even aimed at discussions of de-risking. Both sides appear open to structured, selective collaboration in high-value technologies. So, in short, the Hangzhou this trip indicates that high-tech collaboration, particularly in robotics and intelligent manufacturing, could become a new growth engine in bilateral relations, and also provided that regulatory and security concerns are carefully managed.
That was Wang Le, Associate Professor at the School of Politics and International Relations at East China Normal University. China's maintained a unilateral visa exemption for German visitors since 2023. Many tourists say the policies made their trip to China much easier.
The visa-free policy has made it much more convenient for us to travel to China, and the entry procedures have also become much simpler.
I really want to visit China because it has a long and rich history, and it has also made tremendous progress in modernization. I sincerely hope to see modern China with my own eyes.
Holders of ordinary German passports can stay in China for up to 30 days without a visa, making travel for business, tourism, family visits, and exchanges more convenient. Director Robin Malik at the Goethe Institute China says cultural exchanges and people-to-people ties serve as vital bridges in today's complex global landscape.
where many things are fragile, can be changed in the field of politics or business concerning tariffs and any other things. So particularly then, I think it's so important to have very solid cultural ties, that civil societies are in touch with each other. So just to give you one example, one thing which I think is very relevant is to invite people to get to know each other. We, for example, have artist residency programs where we invite artists from Germany to come to China for 2 or 3 months, as well as Chinese artists to go to Germany. They will have a chance to get to know each other personally, to get to know about everyday life, about realities on the ground, and to build a long-term basis for trust and also understanding what China is like and what Germany is like, I think is so relevant to make those difficult times work for each other and to have bridges that also work for the future.
That was Robin Malik, director of the Goethe Institute China. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz's visit to China comes at a critical time as Berlin struggles with a sluggish economy and high energy prices. The German government is seeking to ramp up the country's transition to renewable energy, a move that depends heavily on Chinese technology. Peter Oliver spoke with German experts to find out more.
Germany is ramping up offshore wind to power its energy-thirsty industries. And as Friedrich Merz heads to China, he's seeking help to drive that expansion. European leaders have already agreed to work more closely on offshore wind power, with a deal signed in Hamburg last month. Germany's renewable rollout leans heavily on imported technology. The vast majority of solar panels and components installed in Europe come from Chinese suppliers, while Berlin relies on China for about 90% of the magnets essential for wind turbines.
German industry is not so well off, and they need really investments. China takes its environmental policy very serious. That shows the goals now in the newest 15 years plan. I think they are an ideal partner. And I don't see anything like this at the side of the other big world player, the USA. There is nothing comparable.
High energy costs are a major concern for German manufacturing. Electricity costs are among the highest in the world, putting pressure on competitiveness. And that's feeding into domestic politics. With the AfD riding high in the polls, energy has become a key line of attack.
The big problem is that we are moving away from a market economy to a planned economy with a planned economic energy policy. This is a complete mistake. We must return to the nuclear energy, the cheapest, most environmentally friendly and most reliable form of energy.
After 2 years of contraction, Germany's economy only grew by around 0.2% last year, a modest recovery weighed down by high energy costs and weak industrial output. As Chancellor Friedrich Merz prepares to head to Beijing, securing affordable energy and the technology that drives it could be central to whether Germany can build on last year's, let's face it, nominal economic growth figures.
That was Peter Oliver reporting from Berlin. Coming up, the U.S. President's delivered a State of the Union address declaring America's golden age.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
14 past now. U.S. President Donald Trump is hit back at Supreme Court justices over their tariff ruling. In his latest State of the Union address, he also weighed in on Iran and hailed the first year of his return to the White House as America's golden age. Nick Harper has details.
Yeah, the longest speech in U.S. history, clocking in at about 1 hour and 48 minutes, beating Donald Trump's own record that he set last year after that recent Friday Supreme Court loss. He called it an unfortunate ruling by the Supreme Court, a disappointing ruling, and he said it was totally wrong. He went on to speak about this idea that he now feels even more empowered by that Supreme Court decision to push ahead with tariffs. He said during that speech that congressional approval was no longer needed for what he wanted to do, and he even suggested that at some point in the future his tariffs and those higher duties paid by foreign countries could replace the domestic income tax here in the United States. And he said that that would take away the financial burden from Americans. But bear in mind that the higher costs of those tariffs over the last year have been borne by Americans. About 95% of the tariff costs being passed on to American companies and American consumers. And Donald Trump knows that that is a big problem for him. Polling out in the last couple of days show that only 34% of Americans approve of his tariff policy. 64% of them are against it. And he knows he needs to turn those numbers around ahead of the important midterm elections in November. And he's trying to tell the American public that he is doing what he can to bring down the cost of living and try and prove that tariffs are one of the things that he's using to make the US economy better. But many Americans simply don't agree with that, and the numbers don't bear it out either. You know, it was interesting. Obviously, he would speak about foreign policy. It's always part of the State of the Union speech. But really, so much of this speech is angled towards an American audience who will be voting in those midterm elections. So it was not until the 90-minute mark that he announced his vision for Iran by saying that diplomacy was his ideal solution in all of this. He said, we want to make a deal. But he also said that the red line for him was ensuring that Iran never obtained a nuclear weapon. He talked about the idea of peace through strength. Those two US aircraft carrier strike groups in the Middle East region, there trying to deter Iran, but also push them to the negotiating table. But he really tried to put the case to the American people about why military action might be needed. He didn't put it forcefully enough, and I think trying to pass what he was saying, it was not clear exactly why the risk is worth it, why carrying out military strikes against the country, if that is what he decides to do, would be worth it for the American people, but also for the Middle East region. He didn't make that clear, but again, a very clear warning to Iran that strikes could be possible if they don't make a deal.
That was Nick Harper in Washington, D.C. The Iranian foreign minister says the country is determined to reach a fair and equitable deal with the United States as soon as possible. Sayed Abbas Araghchi said the two sides have a historic opportunity to strike an agreement that addresses mutual concerns and achieves common interests. He posted the remarks on X ahead of the third round of indirect nuclear negotiations between Tehran and Washington, scheduled for Thursday in Geneva. His remarks follow a recent U.S. military buildup in the Middle East and two rounds of indirect nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran. The talks have centered on Iran's nuclear program and the possible lifting of U.S. sanctions. A U.S. official says around a dozen U.S. Air Force F-22 fighters have landed in southern Israel. The fighters were spotted taking off from an Air Force base in the UK on Tuesday morning. The deployment comes amid a huge U.S. military buildup near Iran and reports that U.S. President Trump has been considering launching a strike against Iran. Russia and Ukraine have once again expressed wishes to end the conflict, which hit the 4-year mark on Tuesday. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says Russia's position is clear and consistent, and it's making every effort to achieve peace. Among Moscow's demands are the withdrawal of Ukraine from the Donbas region and Ukraine's neutral status, and the lifting of sanctions on Russia. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry says Kyiv seeks to end the conflict and restore peace. Ukraine's demanded security guarantees, military support, and financial assistance from its allies. The UN General Assembly reiterated its call for an immediate, full, and unconditional ceasefire. As Russia's military operation in Ukraine enters its 5th year, household budgets are tightening, with families dining out less and watching grocery spending more closely. Adasha Chernyshova spoke with business owners and local residents for a closer look at how the conflict is reshaping everyday consumption in Russia.
This restaurant is one of hundreds grappling with rising operating costs. Taxes, supplies and utility bills have all gone up, pushing owners to raise menu prices just to stay afloat. In Moscow, the hospitality sector is facing its most challenging period since the pandemic lockdowns, with dozens of restaurants and bars forced to close their doors.
We saw tax hikes, and at the start of the year, all suppliers sent us new prices, and everything has gone up. It's not convenient for us. We can't change the prices for the menu every 3 months. The situation is very difficult for us now.
Falling customer traffic, rising supplier costs and higher taxes are squeezing already thin margins, turning eating out into an expense many households are cutting back on.
At the same time, supermarkets across the country remain well stocked, but shoppers may notice fewer options on the shelves as retailers are quietly narrowing product ranges, with demand shifting towards basic, low-cost items.
Industry figures suggest variety has declined across most food categories, reflecting weakening real purchasing power.
We started to buy less fish and beef, more chicken instead of cucumbers. Cabbage are fresh and fermented, making salads with cheaper options.
Officials say the tax changes are necessary to address widening budget deficits, but for many businesses and consumers, the impact is already being felt. Shifts in spending habits from dining out less frequently to cutting discretionary purchases are reshaping everyday consumption patterns. For both households and business owners, these marks a period of adjustment, altering the rhythm of daily life and offering a glimpse into the broader pressures facing the economy.
That was Dasha Chernyshova reporting. U.S. Customs has begun collecting a temporary new 10% global import tariff, even as a White House official says the Trump administration hopes to raise it to 15%. The move has added confusion over U.S. trade policy. Walter Morris has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump is fighting to preserve a key part of his economic and foreign policy after the Supreme Court ruled against his global tariffs. Last week, he signed a proclamation that allows him to bypass Congress and impose a 10% tax on most imports to the U.S., which took effect on Tuesday. Trump then almost immediately announced he was increasing it to 15%.
Other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money.
The tariffs have infuriated U.S. trading partners.
I'm allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1.
Senior administration officials say the Supreme Court ruling does not address the issue of tariff refunds. This week, Democrats in the U.S. Senate introduced a bill that would force the federal government to refund duties paid by U.S. companies. The Tariff Refund Act of 2026 would require a full repayment of the $175 billion of tax revenue collected plus interest. The money would go to small importers and businesses first and would be processed within 6 months. Questions remain over the status of a trade agreement between the U.S. and the European Union. On Tuesday, the EU trade chief said the Trump administration has assured him that it will abide by the deal they made last year.
That was Walter Morris assessing the impact of the latest U.S. tariffs on global trade. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says there's no risk to visitors attending this summer's World Cup and insists the tournament will go ahead as planned despite a surge in violence in recent days. Her remarks follow a deadly military operation that killed a high-profile drug cartel boss. Clashes between cartel members and security forces continued into Monday before the government declared the situation under control. And authorities say dozens of people have died in the unrest. Coming up, China marks the anniversary of the end of extreme poverty in the country.
Pause Plus, a selection of the best podcasts in China, covering history, customs, music, literature, and in-depth dialogues. Find your way to a wealth of Chinese culture and thinking, all on Pause Plus.
24 past now. 5 years ago today, President Xi Jinping announced that China had lifted the last 100 million citizens out of poverty, a goal that was announced back in 2012. That contributed to the 770 million total over the past 4 decades, accounting for more than 70% of the global total. Looking ahead, the 15th five-year plan outlines arrangements for consolidating the achievements of poverty alleviation. And earlier this year, China published its annual #1 central document, underscoring the nation's plans in agricultural modernization and rural revitalization. This year's document stresses the need for consolidating poverty alleviation achievements by improving supportive policies. It demands more precise and timely support for accurate identification and rapid response. The document also urged the increased efficacy of industrial and employment assistance and the adoption of tiered and differentiated measures for underdeveloped areas. And for more on China's poverty alleviation experience, Lincoln Humphreys spoke with Chu Cheng, a fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China.
What long-term structural, industrial drivers and monitoring systems are in place now to secure China's poverty alleviation gains against relapse? And how can the pivot from policy aid to self-sustaining industries really be achieved?
To help those people in vulnerable positions, I think number one we're doing is that we try to monitor who are they and what kind of the help they will need. We have big data platform, we have the community-based management systems in a county, in the village, and also we have all kinds of the categorization. For example, if you have technology, you have all kinds of the skills, fine, we're going to give you some funding to help you build your own business. And if you have the capability to work, well, of course, we're going to find you a job to help you have this sustainable incomes. And also, if you're really in a vulnerable position, for example, you're physically challenged, we are going to find you some government safety net with the Social Security. And sometimes when their natural disaster happen, we're going to provide them acute and a very, very timely responding to help them to solve the problems. And I think secondly is always help them to, help them to learn to fish rather than just give them the fishes. And I think that in order to do so, Chinese government are really try to nurture the local brand, local industries, because we understand with local industries, with local capacities and jobs, people will have absolutely the sustainable income, will have a purpose in their life, and they want to stay, up above the, security line, and also they want to fight for themselves. And that's the reason why we have this one country, one brand campaign. We have the localization of the industry campaign to help lots of enterprises, to root it in many the rural areas, and also to help them get the skill training, to get to have all kinds of services, and help them to find a job.
And what are the standout pillars of China's poverty alleviation model, and what lessons can they offer for turbocharging poverty reduction worldwide?
There are several pillars to support China's successful practice in the poverty alleviation and the later rural areas revitalization. I think number one is the government leadership and also very targeted and precise policies. For example, in China, you probably heard that we have our secret recipe, the targeted poverty alleviation. We try to find out who are they, where are they, and what kind of reason made them, fall into the desperate poverty, and how can we find a way to get them out? So each county, each village, or even each household will adopt different policies. And that's when the government's role of leadership has been kicking in, try to coordinate all kinds of effort from the top central level to the grassroots to the village level. And we initiated all kinds of partnership. We asked a lot of rich provinces like Shanghai, Beijing, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu to help those lagging behind the provinces and the regions. And we asked enterprises, big ones like the SOE and also the private champions to help them out. And also lots of the individuals are mobilized to do so. Now, secondly, we understand infrastructures of public services are so important. For example, we understand if you want to get them out of the poverty, you need roads, Wi-Fi, power supplies, clean waters. And this is the lessons we have already learned through many other countries. And also we learned from the cases in the UN. And we've been doing so and invest in so that they can actually have some solid ground to, help themselves. And meanwhile, we try to nurture the inner drive, like we just answered, they need a hands up, not a handout. We need to teach them how to fish. And last but not least, the risk control. We need to watch over who has already been getting out of poverty and how can we prevent them to get back to that kind of position again. And also, how can we help those people who are really being challenged, who cannot help themselves, but also need the government helps. So that's the secret recipe, I think, can be replicated in many other countries.
That was Chu Cheng, a fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China. We're at 29 past. Beijing's getting a light rainfall overnight. It's down to +2. Thursday's getting sleet and 4 degrees. Shanghai's overcast and 7 this evening, then moderate rainfall and 14. Chongqing will see a light rain overnight. It's down to 15. That's followed by cloudy conditions and 19. Nanchang's got light rain in the forecast and 10 degrees, and then moderate rainfall and 13. Last is cloudy overnight, and tomorrow a low of -2. The high is 12 degrees. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, the German Chancellor is in Beijing for an official visit to China and is accompanied by a high-level business delegation. The U.S. President's delivered a State of the Union address and has lashed out at the Supreme Court over a recent tariff decision. And China's marking the 5th anniversary of the elimination of extreme poverty in the country. And Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
Listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. Right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Ever wondered what's actually going on in Africa through the perspective of an African? How are things really going between China and Africa? What's the narrative of this relationship? Well, get a perspective with China-Africa Talk. Hear from African diplomats, entrepreneurs, academics, Chinese natives, and more. Get on our wavelength every week to find out what's real with China-Africa Talk. Find us on your favorite podcast. We'll see you there.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Wednesday. Still to come. In business, direct investment in China by German companies has hit a new milestone. In sports, updated table tennis action at the WTT Singapore Smash. In culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese movie title has made its debut in Los Angeles. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTN Radio. But now checking the day's headlines, here's Tianlu.
Thank you, Shane. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Beijing. Merz began his official visit to China on Wednesday morning. The two-day trip follows China's Spring Festival holiday and comes amid rising transatlantic tensions and calls in Europe, particularly from Berlin, for greater strategic autonomy. The German leader is leading a high-level trade delegation, including senior executives from nearly 30 leading German companies in sectors such as automotive, chemicals, and manufacturing. China's tourism sector showed strong momentum during the 9-day Spring Festival holiday, which ended on Monday. The Ministry of Culture and Tourism said the country recorded 596 million domestic trips, an increase of 95 million compared to the 8-day Spring Festival holiday last year. Domestic tourism spending exceeded 800 billion yuan, or about $116 billion. The ministry said ice and snow tourism and winter sun getaways continue to attract a strong interest. As a result, tourists traveled farther distances and stayed for longer trips. Hainan welcomed over 12 million tourists during the Spring Festival holiday, a nearly 29% jump from last year. Visitors to the island province spent more than 18 billion yuan, or over $2.6 billion, also up sharply. Duty-free sales hit 2.7 billion yuan, up over 30%. The province handled over 86,000 border crossings helped by visa-free policies. Main source markets included Russia and Malaysia. Officials say Hainan will use its free trade port policies to improve tourism. The United Nations has voiced deep concern over the worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan, particularly in North Darfur. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says escalating violence is driving thousands of civilians into eastern Chad.
In the northwest of North Darfur, the continuing escalation of violence in the Teen area of the Sudan-Chad border is forcing civilians to flee to safety in eastern Chad, and it's constraining our ability to access for humanitarian access.
The conflict, which erupted in 2023 between the Sudanese military and the Rapid Support Forces, has fueled widespread displacement and hunger. A recent UN report cited signs of genocide in and around the city of El Fasher in North Darfur. Tawila, also in North Darfur, now hosts more than 715,000 displaced people, and over half the population in the state lacks the minimum daily water requirement. Around 30 people have died and dozens more remain missing after heavy rains battered southeastern Brazil. The downpour, which began Monday afternoon, triggered landslides and sent rivers over their banks, damaging buildings and leaving thousands homeless. Local authorities have declared a state of public calamity and announced 3 days of official mourning. Brazil's president expressed condolences to families who lost homes and loved ones and said the federal government has dispatched health workers and troops to support relief efforts. Authorities say a stabbing attack has left 4 people dead in Washington state. Police said a man in Purdy, allegedly in violation of a no-contact order, attacked people with a knife outside a home. 3 victims were found dead at the scene. A 4th later died in hospital. The suspect was shot and killed by responding deputies. Zambia has declared a polio outbreak. Samples collected from a wastewater treatment plant in Lusaka have tested positive for the virus. The country's health authority says circulating polio virus has also been detected in some neighboring countries, pointing to a broader regional outbreak. It says the government has established a national response management system to coordinate containment efforts. French President Emmanuel Macron has accepted resignation of Laurence Descartes, director of the Louvre Museum. The Louvre has faced a series of challenges in recent months. In October, 4 suspects stole jewels valued at around $103 million. In November, a water leak damaged hundreds of books in the museum's Egyptology library. Meanwhile, rolling strikes have also forced repeated closures, disrupting operations at the landmark institution.
All right, thank you very much. That's Tian Lu with headlines. And coming up in business, direct investment in China by German companies has hit a new milestone.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
37 past, and with business now, here's Wang Ziheng.
Thank you, Shane. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed higher on Wednesday. The Shanghai Composite was up nearly 0.7%. The Shenzhen component gained almost 1.3%. Real estate services and aerospace equipment were among the top gainers. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index increased over 0.6%. Over in Japan, the Nikkei gained around 2.2%. Meantime, international precious metal prices increased on Wednesday. As of the time of writing, the gold spot price stood at around $5,186 per ounce, up around 0.8%. The silver spot price increased nearly 4%. Germany's Federal Statistical Office has confirmed China as its top single trading partner in 2025, with bilateral trade hitting nearly 252 billion euros, or around $297 billion. Two-way investment stock currently exceeds $65 billion, helping to keep the annual rate of volume stable at over $200 billion. These numbers carry significant weight on the continental stage, as they account for nearly a quarter of the EU-China total. German capital is also pouring in. Data from the German Economic Institute shows that in 2025, German corporate direct investment in China exceeded 7 billion euros, a yearly increase of about 50%, marking a new high since the year 2021. The surge in financial commitment reflects strong business sentiment. According to the German Chamber of Commerce in China, an overwhelming 93% of German firms in China have no intention of leaving the market, and over half are planning to expand their footprint. For more, Lincoln Humphreys spoke with Mark Weiser, the commercial general manager of Wellhouse New Material in the eastern Chinese city of Taicang.
Taicang is known as the hometown of German companies, having attracted hundreds of German businesses. From your observations, why have German enterprises formed such a high level of concentration in that city?
Here in Taicang, we have gathered more than 350 first-class German companies. And this success, from my perspective, is not accidental. It's a long-term strategic positioning and a constant and reliable support from the Taicang government. The government here has built up a profound knowledge and deep understanding of German business cultures. The administrative support here in Taicang is outstanding and is easing any concerns about operational uncertainties. Besides this, Taicang is offering an industrial ecosystem that is tailored for German companies. On the other hand, we definitely have a scaling effect. The more companies are coming, the more companies are being attracted. German companies talk to each other, and they are growing up their own community here. Last but not least, the location of Taicang is outstanding. It's close to Shanghai, but with lower operational costs.
Now, despite the many and varied global uncertainties at the moment, many German companies still plan to increase their investments in China over the next 2 years. What factors are driving German firms to expand their investment in China?
First of all, China is still one of the biggest markets with the biggest potential. We just heard second and third biggest economies in the world are gathering in Beijing. Besides this, we definitely see a shift of quality production also for demand of quality products in this perspective. We definitely have supply chain advantages if you go local for local. If you invest in China, you have a better access to the Chinese domestic market as well and lower your resilience towards the global uncertainties. Talking about this one, you mentioned two words, global uncertainties. One of the biggest aspects and strategic pillars for German companies to decide whether to invest in a country or not is certainties. And China definitely is offering certainties. The business environment is reliable, is resilient, it's transparent with supporting policies. And this overall makes China still a very attractive market for the German companies.
So the Business Confidence Survey of 2025-2026 released by the German Chamber of Commerce in China shows that many German companies are collaborating with Chinese enterprises that are going global. In your view, what are the respective advantages of China and Germany in their overseas partnerships?
They have both countries and companies have highly complementary strengths. China is known for speed, scalability, cost efficiency, and technical innovation. Germany, on the other hand, is known for excellence, engineering, brand positioning, and quality standards. One of the biggest advantages from Chinese companies is that they are very agile in responding and reacting to market changes and consumers' demands. So if you pair both strengths of both companies and countries, you will have a win-win situation. Not only from my perspective for the companies and countries itself, but also for the customers globally.
That was Commercial General Manager Mark Weiser with Whalehost New Materials in Taicang. Now, Shanghai has relaxed its housing market rules starting Thursday to make it easier for people to buy homes. Non-Shanghai residents now only need to pay social insurance or taxes for 1 year to purchase a property within the Outer Ring Road, a significant reduction from the previous requirement. Eligible buyers are also allowed to purchase an additional home in the area. At the same time, the city has increased housing fund loan limits. The maximum loan for first-time individual buyers through the Provident Fund has been raised to 2.4 million yuan, and for some families that figure can now exceed 3.2 million yuan, or around $350,000. The move is aimed at supporting the local property market and improving access to home ownership. Humanoid robots are clearly moving from science fiction to the real world. China has surged ahead in scale and deployment in this field. Many companies already produce most of the humanoid robots sold globally. Analysts say China's combination of policy backing and supply chain strength has put it in a leading position. For more, Karina Mitchell spoke with Liu Xiaoxian, Director of Embodied AI at the Shenzhen Institute of Artificial Intelligence and Robotics for Society.
What do you make of the surge in interest in these humanoid robots? Why do you think it created such a buzz this year?
Well, first, it's very good to show. If you talk about virtual AI, then the best way to show it is to have the generative AI to generate a piece of movie, for example. But then for physical AI, the best way to show it is to demonstrate through humanoid robots. And that's why it creates a lot of buzz around the world.
For people like me who aren't necessarily tech experts, can you help just break down for us the advancement Chinese firms in particular have made in terms of robot capabilities just even in the past year? How significant is all of that?
Well, I think it's highly significant. If you look at a robot, it's not just one product. It's a combination of many components in the supply chain, advanced sensors, advanced motors, and then advanced manufacturing capability to make sure the robots meet the quality needs. So it's a combination. So with one robot, you can demonstrate the capability of the whole Chinese supply chain in robotics. And then you can use your imagination. If you can dance, you can perform a lot more tasks. For example, in home, you can perform services. In the factory, as you show on the screen, it can do manufacturing, moving products around, and so on and so forth. If we think of this as an integration of robotics into society, it's going to 2026 as the starting year of integrating a massive scale of robots into our society and into our daily work.
That was Liu Xiaoxian on China's humanoid robot development. Beijing will host this year's Zhongguancun Forum from March 25th to 29th. This year's forum will feature 5 components, including technology trade fairs. The National Development and Reform Commission and the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology are the major organizers. Founded in the year 2007, the forum has evolved into a global high-level international event for enhancing global innovation in science and technology.
All right, thank you very much. That's Wang Ziheng with Business. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, updated table tennis action at the WTT Singapore Smash.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
47 past, and turning to sports, here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Shane. In table tennis, Kuai Man and Chen Yi have entered the women's doubles semi-final at the WTT Singapore Smash. The Chinese duo beat Kim Na-yeon and Rai Han-na. They will next meet Miwa Harimoto and Hina Hayata. Also on Wednesday, Chen Yuanyu and Xiang Peng entered the men's singles round of 16. Shi Xunyao advanced to the next round of women's singles, while her teammate He Zhuojia suffered a loss. On Tuesday, world number 1 Wang Chuqin advanced to the men's singles round of 16 by sweeping past Shinsuke Togami in straight games. He will next face Anders Lind. On the women's side, Wang Manyu eased past Chen Yichen in the round of 32 match. She said she told herself to stay patient during the win.
In this match, my opponent hit some brilliant attacking shots. The first 2 games were very tough, as we each took one game 11-9, and the scores were very close. So I told myself to stay patient.
Wang will next meet Shin Yubin. In football, Bodo Glimt has entered the last 16 of the UEFA Champions League for the first time. It knocked out last season's finalist Inter Milan with a 2-1 victory in the second leg of their playoff and sealed a 5-2 aggregate win. The result follows its victories against Man City and Atletico Madrid at the end of the league phase. Coach Kjetil Knutsen says he's delighted about the victory.
First of all, I think it's an amazing evening for the club, for the players, for the town, and also for Norwegian football. But as maybe you know, we don't know. We are in the 1.8 final. That's for sure, and we are never talking about goals, and we are talking about how to perform and how we can take steps and develop the players and the team. And now I think that's extremely important. We have our way to do it, and that's really important from tomorrow and to the next round.
Meantime, Inter Milan coach Christian Chivu says his team should have performed better.
We know that there is a lot of competition in the Champions League. There are teams that have come this far in the Champions League, which means that they have something. They have shown it at Dortmund and at Madrid, against City and against us twice. They are also probably taking advantage of the fact that they're not playing at the moment. They have a lot of energy, and you can see that they have a lot more energy than those teams that play every 3 days. But this is not an excuse. We could have done better in Norway. We could have done better today.
In other matches, Alexander Sørloth scored a hat-trick to help Atletico Madrid see off Club Brugge, winning the second leg 4-1 and 7-4 on aggregate. Atletico will play either Tottenham Hotspur or Liverpool in the last 16. Newcastle confirmed its place in the last 16 of the Champions League for the first time after beating Karabakh 3-2 and completing a 9-3 aggregate victory. Leverkusen also progressed to the round of 16 following a goalless draw with Olympiacos in the second leg, but a 2-0 win on aggregate. Reigning title holder Paris Saint-Germain is preparing for its upcoming second leg playoff showdown in the Champions League, where it will host Monaco. PSG coach Luis Enrique says he knows that winning will be difficult, but also has no intention of making an early exit.
C'est un match particulier, très difficile.
It is a very specific match and a very difficult one. We have one team who will start the game potentially eliminated, and at the end of the match, one of the two teams will be eliminated indeed. We will have to manage the different moments of the game, because facing Monaco will be tough. But what is for sure is that we want to progress, and we want to continue our journey in the Champions League.
PSG is holding a 3-2 advantage against Monaco following the first leg of the playoff. In snooker at the Welsh Open, Chang Bing-yu has become the 9th player in history to sink 4 consecutive century breaks. He thrashed England's Sean Murphy 4-0 to reach the second round. The Chinese player will next face Jackson Page of Wales. In another action, Zhao Xintong defeated compatriot Fan Zhengyi 4-3, keeping alive his hopes of winning 3 consecutive ranking events. His next opponent will be Stan Moody of England. And finally, in tennis, former world number 1 Daniil Medvedev has defeated Shang Junchen of China for the second consecutive week. Medvedev is to a straight sets win in the first round of the Dubai Championship. The third seed will meet Stan Wawrinka in the second round. In other matches, Ugo Humbert brushed aside Stefanos Tsitsipas of Greece in straight sets and will face former champion Andrei Rublev of Russia.
All right, thank you very much. That's a young one with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese movie title has made its debut in Los Angeles.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
52 past the hour. In culture and entertainment, one of the most popular Chinese movie titles during the Spring Festival holiday has made its debut in North America. Racing comedy Pegasus 3 has premiered in Los Angeles, and Edith Tianxian was there.
China's film market pulled in 5.75 billion yuan. That's about $830 million during the 9-day Chinese Spring Festival holiday, according to China's film administration. Topping the holiday box office was Pegasus 3, the third installment in director Han Han's hit car racing comedy franchise. The film also marked a milestone this weekend, holding its North American premiere in Los Angeles.
I was invited to the Los Angeles premiere at the Grove on Sunday. Having seen the first of the Pegasus movies and being a fan of Han Han, obviously I was excited to go and see the third one. And I thought the movie played amazingly well. I thought the production values were terrific. I thought they were certainly on a par with anything being done in America today.
Pegasus 3 is a fast-paced racing comedy about ambition, rivalry, and second chances, blending high-octane action with universal humor and emotion in a way designed to resonate with audiences far beyond China. The film is set to screen in several major cities across the United States and Canada, a move industry watchers say reflects a broader push by the Chinese film industry to expand its international footprint.
So kudos to the Chinese industry in terms of pulling up their socks and now being able to generate world-class, from a production point of view, films, and from an entertainment point of view, films that can engage audiences outside of China.
Featuring Chinese star Shen Teng, Pegasus 3 closed the Spring Festival season as the highest-grossing film of the holiday. Its North American release is being seen as another sign that more Chinese productions are finding their way onto big screens abroad.
That was Edith Tianchen reporting. A French museum dedicated to Asian arts has staged performances to celebrate the Chinese New Year and promote cultural exchanges and mutual learning between the two countries. The show at the Guimet Museum in Paris opened with a lion dance. It was followed by another show, Under the Starry Sky of Poetry, which paid tribute to Chinese and French poets. The performance included recitations of works by masters like Li Bai, Su Shi, Victor Hugo, Paul Verlaine, and Paul Claudel. General Manager Vincent Billeret said they had a large turnout for the festive occasion.
Pour le musée Guimet d'être aussi un lieu de vie, un lieu où les gens viennent fêter.
It's important for the Guimet Museum to also be a vibrant place, a place where people come to celebrate the major days of the Asian calendar. And it's in this spirit that we're hosting a large number of events at the museum today. The lion dance, of course, which many of our visitors now look forward to year after year, but also a poetry performance and poetry readings in the auditorium, and various guided tours in our galleries as part of the current temporary exhibition.
French-Chinese poet Zheng Erling hopes that the culture of poetry can be passed down from generation to generation.
I wish to pass on our traditional culture of poetry and verse forever. The Chinese New Year should be joyful and lively, of course, but we also need a nobler art so that children and young people never forget our poetry passed down from antiquity to the present day.
French officials also praised the event as captivating and touching. They said it offered an opportunity to consider commonalities between the two cultures. A cultural practice from East China is lighting up a city in Xinjiang. The Qinhuai Lantern Show in Yining showcases 5 lantern sets combining classic motifs such as the God of Wealth with local cultural symbols. The exhibition blends architectural elements from Nanjing and Yining with holographic projections. The lantern show is going to run through the end of next month. And a significant archaeological breakthrough is emerged in Giza, the site of ancient Memphis in Egypt. A joint Chinese-Egyptian mission has uncovered a limestone structure believed to be linked to the temple of Pharaoh Apries from Egypt's 26th dynasty over 2,000 years ago. Excavations also uncovered 5 headless Sphinx statues. We're at 57 past the hour. Beijing will see a light rainfall and +2 Wednesday evening. It's then sleet and +4 on Thursday. Shanghai's overcast and down to 7, then moderate rainfall and 14. Chongqing will be getting a light rain and 15 overnight, then cloudy conditions and 19. Nanchung's getting a light rain overnight, 10 degrees, followed by moderate rainfall and 13. Lhasa will see cloudy conditions tonight and tomorrow, a low of -2 and a high of 12 degrees Celsius. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, the German Chancellor is in Beijing for an official visit to China and is accompanied by a high-level business delegation. And the U.S. President's delivered a State of the Union address and has lashed out at the Supreme Court over a recent tariff decision. On behalf of the staff, this is Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the Yellow River in his eyes.
The Yellow River is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in a time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio